Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ivy Games Weekly. I'm Austin Harrison, and I am really, really excited about today. Well, we, of course, have Zach Dixon, so I forgot you, Zach.
Hello.
But
No, it's fine.
this guest
it's not important.
Not important. This guest needs no introduction. You know who he is. We're going to try to do him justice anyway. Most people will know him for his amazing games, some of my favorite being Scythe and Viticulture. Zach's a big fan of Wingspan. So these are household names at this point. Everyone has played them. But other than your games, Jamey, yeah, everyone has played them. Other than your games, Jamey, one way I really engaged with your content was your crowdfunder strategy guide, and then also the Kickstarter lessons on your blog. And those were so instrumental for us getting off the ground. And you just really, really help so many people through that. So thank you for that. But yeah, welcome to the show, Jamey.
Yeah, thank you so much for that nice introduction. And that means a lot to me that you found some utility in the posts that I've written about what I've learned, the many mistakes that I've made that hopefully you didn't have to make because I already made them. And yeah, and congrats on Moonrakers. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much.
We made plenty of our own mistakes, for sure.
Brand new ones.
But
it was great.
Yeah, brand new ones. But it was 2 weeks of solid just reading that content and taking notes on what we were going to do, and then for many months after that, just going back to those notes. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, we are really excited to have you on the show. Before we jump into that, I want to talk about a giveaway that we're doing. We still have a few sets of the Moonrakers metal ship tokens to give away. And in honor of Red Rising, we're going to have a code that people can comment with after the show. The code is going to be Slingblade. And if they comment with that in the comment section of the show, you might win a set of metal Moonrakers ships. And we're going to do one drawing today after the show. So comment right after the show. This isn't the live comments. It's the comments in the Forever YouTube channel. And then we're going to do two more on Monday. So if you're watching over the weekend, you can still comment there and you'll still be in the drawing for that on Monday afternoon. So yeah, I'm really excited to put a little bit of Red Rising in there. I'm a huge fan of the books myself, Jamey. So was so excited to see that you were doing a game in this universe.
Yeah, I love the universe too. I'm glad that you've read the books, and it's awesome to hear about the metal tokens that you have in Moonrakers. That's one of the things that we did in the Red Rising Collector's Edition. There's a nice weight to them.
Yes, it's just such a good tactile experience when there's a heavy metal piece.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk to you about Red Rising. Oh, go ahead. Say.
Oh, I was gonna say, speaking of metal tokens, we just got proofs back on the Veiled Fate metal tokens, so I'm holding those here now. So fun. It's always great getting these little pieces. Awesome. They're so tiny on the screen, but but yeah, so we're going to be hitting a couple topics today. So one being Red Rising, which is coming out for pre-order on March 3rd, which we are super excited about, and we'll get to that. But our first topic of the day is digital editions. So we were emailing you about this because we love your digital editions. Just bought Wingspan digital edition, and it's such a it's also just very timely, right? It's like all of a sudden, we used to play games together every week, at my house, and now it's like, well, what are we going to do? Well, we play digital editions, and so Wingspan, super amazing on digital, but I just wanted to get your take on it and hear a little bit about your experience. Clearly this is something you've been working into your process, and I would just love to hear first maybe just a little bit about your history creating digital editions for your games.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit, and we can spin off from what I say here, because I want to hear you guys' thoughts as well. Sounds like it's a topic you've been thinking about a lot. I will say a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, someone approached me about bringing Viticulture, our first game, into digital format, and it ended up being an interesting experience that laid probably not the best foundation for my perspective on digital games, and it's since grown and expanded. But basically, the developer, it was just one guy, a well-meaning developer who loved the game and wanted to bring it to digital form, but he found it to be a lot more work than he thought. And so it kind of dragged on and on and on. And eventually he in a well-meaning way, he said, Jamey, I'm not going to be able to do this. It's going to take forever. I've kind of lost my passion for it. And so that was kind of disheartening that I'd spent kind of years with this agreement with this one guy to get this game into digital format. It just didn't work out. But fortunately, there have been some other good things that have happened along the way. Like I ended up getting, so Viticulture now is available from Digidiced. They did a great job with it. Monster Couch, like you said, has done Wingspan. The Knights of Unity partnered with Asmodee Digital to bring Scythe to life. And a company called Daisu Games made Between Two Castles and Magic and Ludwig. And we have some others on the way. But it kind of made me realize that maybe going with a lone developer versus a more established company is the way to go, unless that lone developer can show me right from the beginning that they can get like an alpha build in the works rather quickly.
Yeah, no, and I can relate to that. We have shipped one video game at this point. It's called Bouncy Smash. Nothing to do with our any board games that we've come out with, but I can relate to this. Like, it's like, oh, it'll just take me a few months of work, and then it's just three years later, it's like, all right, yeah, we're finally ready to launch this thing. It's just so much work, and then not only that, you throw in multiplayer on top of that. It's like one of the hardest things that you can do in game development. But yeah, I think one of the things that we're so excited about, though, is about bringing some of our games to kind of the digital space, is just that ability to like I don't know, it's just like it's out there. It's this like repeatable thing that people can come and buy. Like we don't have to get like things shipped from China and then shipped to your door. It's just like an immediate sale, which is really nice, and can also give people a nice gateway kind of into your games. And so that's just like really exciting to us, and we'd love to be exploring that with some of our games, I think. But it's it's a big time investment, and I think it also could be a big financial investment, and also who knows how it's going to turn out. So it feels a little scary to kind of dive into that. So like, with all that in mind, what has been your kind of process now that you've done this a few times? Like, are you looking at going digital like from day one? Like, are you testing maybe in like Tabletopia or things like that, or what's your process been like?
And one thing I want to say that I really like that you just said is that using digital games as a gateway into the tabletop world, or just into the game in general. But I love that. That's like my main objective for these digital games, whether or not they end up making a lot of money or not. I love that they can introduce someone to the game through the digital version. But we don't use Tabletopia. Well, for game design and playtesting, we don't use Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator all that much. I'm still inclined to get it to the actual physical table when we can. In the pandemic, we've used them a little bit more, but but we do have all of our games on Tabletopia and in just playable format and Tabletop Simulator. Some of them are on Tabletop Simulator. That was the first part of your question. What was the second part of your question?
That's right. It was like too many questions in one. that was my bad. No, in the process of designing games, like things like Wingspan, have you kind of kicked that off in like earlier now? Like, are you just like, we got a new game, we're definitely doing a digital edition as like a part of this? Is that like a part of your process now?
It's definitely a part of the mindset. Like I from day one, I'm not thinking this will be a digital game, but I know that I will be pursuing digital developers for it. But I'm working it into the process a little bit more. Like with Red Rising, as soon as we sent the files to the printer, I reached out to one of the digital developers that I've worked with, that I've had a great experience with, and I asked if they would be interested in bringing it to life in digital format. And so that was months ago. We sent Red Rising to the printer in maybe August or September. And just to give people an idea for timelines, for some developers, we just finished having conversations with that developer now as we record this in mid-February. So it took like 4 months just to even figure out that they were the right fit for it, or they pretty much agreed to it. And their timeline for it is that it won't be out until late 2022. I know all developers are different. Some work at very different speeds, but I don't think that's entirely abnormal that it would take that long. I would love for it to be at like almost simultaneous, like Magic the Gathering somehow does with Magic Online and Magic and Arena. But that currently is not feasible with our resources.
Totally.
Definitely. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And when porting games to digital, this is something that we've been thinking about a lot with aims at maybe an eventual digital edition of Moonrakers or something like that. Are you aiming to create like a one-to-one experience? Because we've kind of been thinking a little bit, right? Like Moonrakers is so reliant on negotiation and table talk and things like that, and there's some really big hurdles. It's not you're not at a table. So have you had any experience with adapting or challenges with adapting some of your games to the digital space?
A couple of them, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I leave it to the developers to make the best digital experience that doesn't break any rules from the core game. Because I don't want someone playing the digital version, learning that version, and then getting the cardboard version to the table and actually having an actual rule be different. But I mean, one of the challenges is condensing a game that takes up the entire table like Scythe down to a tiny screen and even a phone size. But at the same time, there are plus sides like games can track scoring in real time rather than relying on players to, players have a rough idea probably what the score is in their head, but the game can calculate that in real time all the time. So that's pretty cool. There's many different things. What do you guys think? What are some of the challenges and some of the plus sides of digital versions?
Yeah. So for testing,
go for it.
Sorry, Zach. The testing that we've been doing a lot lately, it's like time differences. You spend your time doing different things. So it's like, there's like gaps between like turns and sometime on digital where it's like someone doesn't realize that it's their turn, where if you were sitting around a table, it would be. But then like shuffling a deck of cards sometimes takes one person that's shuffling a minute. And you're like, hey, I think those have been shuffled for the last 30 seconds. Where on, a digital experience, it's just automatic. It just happens. And so there are a bunch of different experiences and challenges, and Zach will probably go into some of the other ones that we've just been thinking about lately, but yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just one of the things that I'm torn between is I also just love the medium of video games as well too. And I see the potential of amazing strategy games like Scythe or like something like Moonrakers that's like do we make a video game that captures the feeling of playing Moonrakers, or do we make a digital edition of a board game? And I think honestly both can be great, and maybe there is space for both. But I also just think there are some just like wonderful board game mechanics that could be used as more of an inspiration for a video game that's maybe a bit more suited to that medium. So that's where I'm torn right now, and that's what I know we talk a lot about and are thinking a lot about.
Well, we've seen that with games like Slay the Spire. Like that, it feels like a tabletop game.
Yes.
But it does things like modifying and upgrade cards that you can do in a tabletop space. Like if you have sleeve cards and you're upgrading the sleeves and whatnot, but it's just a lot more arduous on the tabletop format. But in digital, it's Hearthstone too does it. It's just a lot more. It's 100%. Easier to do it that way. And setup too. I want to throw setup in there. Setup can be it just is so much easier.
It just
in digital format. Yeah.
I'm excited to see the Slay the Spire board game because they're coming out with one, I think, this summer. So
I did not know that. That's great.
Yeah,
we talk about Slay the Spire all the time. No, Slay the Spire is a great reference because it's like uses that kind of deck building mentality and like mixes like kind of a rogue in there, which is just so fun. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We're in the early days of talking about these things, but I love it. And the other pro that I think is really nice is just like it's you can really bake things in and not let people break the rules. Like you've got like just a wonderful tutorial that you can follow along and Wingspan, get people into the game that way, which I think is really nice. One of my questions was like, and you kind of have already answered that a little bit, is like, do the digital editions funnel say like audience to your physical games, or is it the other way around? Like, do you see, like, because I got Wingspan in real life and then I was like, oh, I got to get this in digital. So I was kind of the other way. But is this also kind of a part of your sales and like advertising funnel for your games as well?
Definitely from the tabletop to the digital, like with Wingspan and with Scythe in particular, those companies, Asmodee Digital and Monster Couch, have provided discount codes that we include in every copy of those games. So if you buy a copy of Wingspan now, well, actually, I don't want to say every copy because we try to put it in every copy. most likely, if you buy a copy of Wingspan, you'll have a coupon code to buy the digital version at like 25 or 30% off. So that funnel is, I think, working pretty well. The funnel the other way, it's a lot harder to track. We've tried tracking it by like providing Asmodee Digital with a promo code that someone can use to buy Scythe from us. But when we've tried that, it hasn't converted that many sales. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because most people who own Scythe Digital already own Scythe, and so they don't care. I don't know if there's something else going on there. But yeah, I haven't seen the funnel go that way yet, or maybe we just haven't done something effectively to build that funnel yet.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
No,
we own both. And we got Scythe first, definitely. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this will be so fun to play, when during pandemic, like we can't get together with the 4 people we would love to play Scythe with. So yeah, that's so interesting. That's kind of like how it does make sense though, that more of your audience would be shoved to the digital because of the pandemic, especially just given current world events. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other aspect of that too, I think we talked a little bit about this in our last episode, is also the element of having things on Tabletopia and doing, we've got our games up on Tabletop Simulator, which is, it's a little bit more out of our control, which is a little bit different. But you've done some official versions through Tabletopia as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a common thread with what we've done with digital games. It's very hands off. Like, I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Running a board game company and designing games takes a lot of time. And so my approach to all these digital versions has been, this is me talking to the developer. I love if you are going to take this and run with it, and we'll be here at key points in the process, key milestones to approve like what you're doing if you need that from us. But I want you to just run with it. And so we've taken that approach with Tabletopia, with Tabletop Simulator, with Board Game Arena, and all these official digital versions. That's what they're experts at. I want them to run with it and make it.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's definitely great from a delegation standpoint, because there's just not enough hours in the day to do all of it. So
right.
Jamey, when we asked you on the show, the whole show was going to be about digital adaptations. And then right after we asked you, you announced Red Rising. And I was like, well, the show's going to change, because I am so excited about this. I literally just finished the first 3 series at the end of last year and just started the second set of books this year. So I'm not quite done the entire series. And I'm just absolutely loving it. And it's just so awesome to see like you fight for this, because I've watched your video from 2018 where you were like, I tried to do this Red Rising game and I just didn't find something that I liked. And it's so encouraging to see a developer that I respect and look up to be like, yeah, that didn't work for 5 years. And now we're doing it, and we've arrived at a place where I'm really excited. So if you guys haven't heard about this game, Red Rising is a hand management combo building game. It is based on the novels by Pierce Brown. If you haven't read them, they're insanely good. 1 to 6 players. Jamey, I'm really excited about that. Most games stop at 5, and I usually play with calls. And I'm super excited, but I'm even more excited about the 60-minute mark, because that's really hard to do with 6 players. So congratulations on that. Can't wait to try it out. Zach took a personality quiz, and he is Ceres, and I'm Jupiter. Was very excited about being House Jupiter. Can you tell us what house you are?
I was House Ceres as well. Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
All right.
I was going to guess Mars, but I was obviously wrong. But I have a few questions. So this is a long development process, because I'm just seeing your video. It looks like it's like probably 5 to 6 years. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I got Pierce's blessing to start working on it in 2017. So yeah, that's about 4 or 5 years.
Can you tell us about that process a little bit? And this was your first time working with Alex Schmidt, right?
Yeah. I guess the short version of the story is, even before 2017, I love the books. I wanted to design a game in the world. Pierce gave me his blessing in 2017, and I got to work working on this book, on a game for this book series that I love. And like you mentioned, I basically designed 4 versions of the game completely from scratch, and each one just wasn't fun, wasn't good, wasn't functional, and most importantly, it just didn't feel like I was immersed in this world that I loved with these characters that I loved. And so I put out that video. I started accepting submissions from other designers, and none of them really captured it. And then one day I was at my game night, I was playing a game called Fantasy Realms. Have you guys played Fantasy Realms?
Mm-hmm. I haven't, but I know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fantasy Realms is kind of a very distilled version of this game, where it's a hand management game, combo building. On your turn, you are getting rid of a card and you are putting a card in your hand. And at the end of the game, you're scoring all the cards in your hand, which hopefully combo together. And we were playing this game, and it has 10 suits in it. And I had been trying to capture the 14 different color casts in Red Rising. And so we found this game that actually worked with 10 suits and wasn't overbearing in how those suits were implemented. And so Alex and I kind of had this moment, this eureka moment at the same time. And we started working on Red Rising, which we wanted to, it was definitely inspired by Fantasy Realms, but it ended up being, a midweight game versus a 10 to 15 minute filler game.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know it's a hand building game, and I know that a lot of people that have read the books will just have a certain aversion to certain characters. And this is a total tongue-in-cheek question, and I don't actually think this is true. But if I draw the Jackal, can I discard him just out of hate, or is that not a thing I can do?
You can certainly, if you gain the Jackal by accident on your next turn, you could definitely get rid of him if you don't want him as part of your crew. Yeah.
Because that might have been a deal breaker for me. I'm not sure I could just look at his card in my hand. I might have had to trash it from the game in order to play. All right. So obviously the world of Red Rising is this huge grand strategy across planets and universes. And you've had to kind of distill that down to focusing on the characters. And we've been working on a pitch for an IP, and it's kind of similar where it's really just this huge grand strategy. And I just hit a wall where I was like, I cannot make a game that would both appeal to the fans of the series because it's lightweight enough or medium weight enough for them to play, because everything I was making that was true to the series was TI4 level. Like, it was like that big. So how did you guys hone in so well on the characters? And can you tell me about, like, did you start with the grander strategy and narrow it down, and how'd you get there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That was the puzzle. That was the biggest part of the puzzle for us, because I wanted a game. I had 2 objectives. One, I wanted to design a game that would appeal to fans of Red Rising who were not gamers or who were light gamers at best. And I wanted to design a game that would appeal to the medium weight kind of Euro gamers that follow Stegmaier games. And that's a tough puzzle to crack. And originally my attempts at the game were much more big and sprawling, and it wasn't welcoming to players who weren't experienced gamers, and B, I just didn't feel like I was in this world. And so we ended up really focusing on the characters. And also the other thing that we wanted to do here is not spoil the books, because I wanted to introduce this series to people who hadn't read the books yet. And so by focusing on the characters, we can do that. So we have 112 characters in the game. The characters kind of wink and hint at things. So you've read the book, so you'll get certain things that people who haven't read the books won't understand. But that doesn't fit the way the game plays itself. By focusing on the characters, that really, really helped make the game welcoming for gamers and non-gamers alike, I think.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you came to that decision, because the magic of the books is the characters. There's just so many lovable and hateable characters in this series, and the ability to actually play a game while having those memories drawn up from, like, oh my gosh, this is the character that did this. Like, I'm so excited to play the game, and my wife is a big fan of the series as well. So it's going to be really great to kind of pull her into this universe, into a game that she might not normally play. And it was hilarious, because Viticulture was the exact opposite. We had to be like, hey, it's a game about making wine, and she's like, that doesn't sound very interesting. And then she played it and she loved it, and we kind of had to like drag her in, because she's not a board gamer. Like, she doesn't love playing board games, but then she loved it and wants to play it more. And I'm like, this is going to be the opposite, where she loves the universe and is pulled in by the universe and then loves the game on top of that. So I'm really pumped to play it.
So I'm curious. You said you got the kind of blessing for the game in 2017. What was the process like working on someone else's intellectual property, and was there a lot of back and forth there?
Yeah, well, one half of it was the legal side. That side I didn't anticipate quite as much, and there was a lot of back and forth there, not directly with Pierce, but like with his legal team early on, a lot with his literary agent, as the book series went from having, I think there were film rights at some point, maybe even twice during this entire process, where a company had the film option.
Wow.
That expired. And I think sometime during the process when I was designing it with his blessing, I think it got wrapped up in film rights again, which I think is awesome. Like, I would love to see this series on the big screen. But that's complicated things from one side. And finally, at one point, Pierce basically stepped in and was like, I don't know if this movie will ever be made, but I know that Jamey is going to make a game. So let's make that happen, which was awesome to see from Pierce. The other side was Pierce's time. I wanted to be, it was really cool of Pierce to do that. But along the way, I really wanted to be respectful of Pierce's time, because his main objective, the reason that I wanted to work with him, is because he's an awesome writer. I wanted him to continue to write books. I didn't want him to have to feel like he needed to work on the design, work on the art at all, or promote the game. Like, none of that is his job. All that is my job. And so I basically only reached out to him a few times during the design process, like to approve the box cover. I sent him a very early, well, not a very early, I sent him a pre-production copy of the game, like a very fancy prototype created by our real manufacturer, so he could see what the game would look and feel like in his hands. And I checked with him before deciding the release schedule for the game, just in case it conflicted with a book release schedule, which it is not happening yet. He hasn't written book 6 yet, but just in case it did, I reached out to him to talk about that as well. But beyond that, I've tried to like really let him do his thing, and we can focus on the game.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we have a few questions from our chat here. The first one is the suit numbers equal across the different colors, or are the suit numbers equal?
Yeah, so there are 14 colors. Golds are the elites in this world, and there are a lot more gold characters that are named and that you get to know in the books than the other characters. So than the other colors. So there are 7 of each color other than gold, and then there are 21 golds. We probably could have had even more golds than that, but I didn't want it to be too heavily imbalanced on that side.
Yeah, awesome. Another one is from Chuck White. He wants to know if there's anything in the game that isn't in the world, in any creative license that you could do with adding things.
Yeah, and one thing that we've done, I'm curious if you guys have done this in your games, but we put Easter eggs in many of our games. Like, we usually put some reference to St. Louis because we're based in St. Louis, like whether it's the arch or the 314 zip code. I usually put my cats on. I think you probably saw one of my cats in the background here a few minutes ago.
Yep.
I usually try to sneak them in the art. But with an IP, again, I wanted to be really respectful to the IP and not put Jamey's world into the Red Rising world. So in the rule book, I reference my cats, but they're not in the art of the game or anything like that. Have you guys put Easter eggs in any of your games?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, they're like we put some like names like of crew that have like share the same last name as some of the people on our teams, things like that. And but yeah, not a ton of Easter eggs, but we have yet to work on
I sneak some stuff past Zach and Sam sometimes too. There's just some slight references to Star Wars or Lord of the Rings in some of the titles of things. I mean, just like Duel of Fates or The Way Is Shut, just like normal stuff like that. Nothing too intense.
No, it's
awesome.
It is interesting that we have not done an IP game though, and that does kind of bring up an interesting point in that, like, in the universes where we create our own thing, like the possibilities are endless, and that is almost its own problem, right? It's like it almost feels too daunting because it's just like, oh, I don't know, we could introduce any type of character to come into Moonrakers, but here instead you almost have the opposite problem. Is you have a very, you want to stay true to the works, and you want to fit kind of inside that box and do it justice. So it sounds like it would be a very different type of challenge to kind of work it all into the theme.
Yeah, and you really have to know that world inside and out, I think, to do it justice. And so there are certainly IPs that I love, but I have a lot of books that I want to read. I don't necessarily like The Way of Kings. I love the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson.
Woo!
But I don't know if I want to read them over and over again, because I have other books that I want to read. But if I pursued that IP, I feel like I would have to read them at least one more time. And that, I don't know, that's one of the ways, like with Red Rising, when I got the IP, I was like, okay, I'm excited to read these books again. That wouldn't be the case with every book or every movie or every IP for me.
Mm-hmm. Stormlight is so
Yeah,
challenging
definitely.
because every book is like a 50-hour read. But, you know, I may or may not have read all of them more than one time. Who knows? No comment.
Really? Okay.
Another question from Meeple Foundry. If you don't know them, they're a really great localization shop in Spain. They want to know, is the game going to be strong enough and interesting enough for people outside the United States or people that have not read Red Rising, especially on a game that's going to have to be translated? That's a question from them.
I hope so. I mean, the book is available in many, many different languages. So even if it hasn't reached popularity in other countries to the level that it has in the US and North America, I hope so. It is available. But we certainly did run into that with our German partner, who is usually very eager to bring our games to the German audience. And they kind of did their research on the books and found that they weren't well known in Germany. And so they passed on it, which was a little disappointing. But I get it. I mean, they're investing their money in it too. And we now have a ton of German partners that we haven't worked with before that have found out about the game that want to work with it. So I think in the end, maybe the game needs to stand on its own, even though it is an IP game. And that might be this is something that I'm kind of finding out now, that if people find out that it is an IP game and they don't know the IP, that might be uninviting to at least some people. But I'm hoping that the game does stand on its own, and we'll find out that next week when some of the early reviews come out, if it does stand out for people who have no idea what the series is.
Yeah, I've already had the benefit of watching some of the videos that you've posted just from other reviewers are doing how it's played, and yeah, it is one of those things that it's a little bit of a risk if they don't know the IP. It's like, well, if you don't know Star Wars, are you really interested in playing Rebellion? But if you play Rebellion, like that cat and mouse aspect stands on its own really well, and everything that I've seen from Red Rising makes me think it will too. So I'm really excited to play it. Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I hope so.
We've taken up a little bit more time than we said we would of yours. So I'm going to transition to telling people that they can sign up for your early sign up list for the announcement of when the deluxe edition drops. Can you tell us just in a couple seconds the differences between the deluxe and the standard edition?
Yeah, the gameplay is exactly the same, but in the collector's edition, it's like a numbered box. We mentioned the metal components, so all the components are metal instead of plastic. And the 21 gold character cards that I mentioned have gold foil in the sidebar. That's probably my favorite part. I really like how that looks. And we also are including card holders in the collector's edition, because your hand does have to remain private in the game. So it's just kind of aesthetic differences and a few tactile differences.
We are all about those differences at IV, so we definitely appreciate it and cannot wait to get the collector's edition. Where would they go to sign up for that, Jamey?
If you go to stegmaiergames.com, it's kind of the highlighted game on the website right now. And like you mentioned, the pre-order will be on March 3rd. So people have plenty of time to sign up. I think we've made plenty of copies in the first print run. So if you are interested in the game, you don't need to race to be there on the 9:30 in the morning on March 3rd. I think it'll be fine.
Sounds good. Awesome. Great. So, Jamey, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you for a few minutes, getting to know you. And thanks for sharing your about Red Rising and also your knowledge about digital adaptations of games.
My pleasure. Yeah, it was great talking to you guys as well.
Awesome. Once again, guys, we are doing a giveaway for Moonrakers metal ship tokens. We're giving away 3 sets, one today. As soon as this video ends, you can do a comment in the comment section, but you have to include the word Sling Blade, which if you've read Red Rising, you'll recognize. And then if you watch it over the weekend before Monday, please comment as well. And we will also be giving away 2 more sets on Monday afternoon. When we go back and look at the comments, we'll do a random selection. So make sure you do that. And as always, thank you so much for watching IV Games Weekly. And we can't wait to continue providing content for y'all. Bye.
Bye.
We got.